lot of people don't know where to start when they want to do something. And if you want to get some type of success or groundwork to say that you even tried doing something, because if you haven't done something for, I would at least say, a certain amount of time, up to 3 months, then you haven't really tried. You haven't given it everything you can, and you probably could even do more than you think, but you have to build a system. If you want to be able to do anything, especially when you don't know how to, you have to think of systems. So I always ask myself, how could I make 5 pieces of content? How could I make 10? I try to go even farther than that just to test myself, but especially when it comes to something completely new that I don't have a lot of familiarity with, I'm just going to ask myself, like, what's the simplest way to make content to get people to it? Because no matter what you do, since content is the key now, and you really have to systemize how you're going to do that. The more content you make, the more goals that you get to try to take with the soccer ball. And that's pretty much the name of the game. A lot of people don't understand that this is an attention economy. That means that if you understand how to use the algorithm to feed people's attention back to you, even if it's just by posting a lot, and that's kind of my ideology with things, is that if I can be consistent enough, then no matter what I do, it's impossible for me to fail. As long as I'm not just always doing the same thing. You obviously have to keep changing it up. You have to keep doing different things. You can't live in a loop of doing the same stuff over and over and over and not getting any results. But I think a lot of people don't understand that you have to test. If you haven't tested enough, then there's no telling what's actually going to work, why it's working. Because you could say things work for other people, and you can try them. But if they don't work for you, you're going to be back in the same spot once again, which is asking yourself, like, what do I do? So hopefully this gives some type of broad perspective. I've been thinking about this a lot when it comes to like life, because if you don't do something where you can show up to it every day and you can do it every day, then there's just no guarantee that you're going to be able to keep yourself on track with it and actually see results or see anything from it. So I think that's like the whole point, is the system helps you actually see if you're going to get results in the end or not. We try to think of things to small time scale, try to crunch things out, but at the end of the day, if you can figure out how to do it every single day, then like you're going to win. And if you can then get it in your body and get it in your system, you're going to be really used to it, so that way you can now start innovating. I think that's what some people are trying to merge when they do different things or they try new stuff, is they're trying to think like, man, can I know enough to get into it, but also like be able to do something different? Or, you know, it's hard to find themselves, but sometimes you have to grab a foundation before you start trying to expand. And I think that's what I've learned the most, like even with content and making content, being a content creator as a whole. Because before trying to do this and stream, which I have a background and history of trying to stream, and I could actually tell that story. A lot of people don't know how predatory certain aspects of the early Twitch days were. And when I say early, I'm talking like 2017, 2016 type of time. You know, TikTok and stuff, it didn't exist. So it was based so heavily on like community, and we're talking like localized community where, you know, people are trying to drop in other people's streams, and there's this heavy like social aspect to it. And the only thing that you really had, I guess, was like trying to post on Reddit, Instagram, and, you know, basically being a YouTuber, like all the outside stuff. But I got caught up in it for a minute where, like, you know, people would centralize themselves as a community for people to come in and grow themselves essentially. And it became this like very favoritismed cult almost, because it's like if people didn't like you that owned the community or, you know, something else of the sort. And like most people still just live in high school minds, even though some of these people were, you know, in their 30s and 40s, they still just trying so hard to grow their stream and, you know, support for support. But that just doesn't work. And it didn't really work for any of them. Even still to this day, like if I had stayed with it and kept up, then I probably would have gotten something out of it. But, you know, TikTok changed everything to do with streaming and how you get viewers and how you build your own community, because you don't need to do that. Like at this point now, it's obviously more just like trying to collab with other people and find ways to outsource content that isn't just from you specifically. You know, most people don't really want advice, and most people don't want help. Most people don't actually want to hear things that break their form of reality. And your form of reality is the ego you build to identify with what things are. Because if you believe that the sky is a cyan blue and you try to tell people that that's what it is, you're good luck, because everyone's going to see colors completely different. And so people's worlds and their own internal worlds are built really different. And this is why, you know, in today's world especially, truth has become a commodity in itself and almost a threat just by its existence. Because when people don't naturally accept the change and evolution that's embedded within their genes and their DNA and who they are and who we all are as people, there becomes a crossroad where that's where you see people have spiritual pressure. This is what I would signify anybody who has a very difficult time with things that might seem abnormal, what we label as like, you know, people being diagnosed with depression or things of the sort, without ever giving spiritual interpretations to all those things, because they mean something differently for different people as they experience some of these things. And, you know, I don't think anybody talks about how we're not just in like some mass extinction, but specifically we're at like a big overturn culturally as an entire species. And culture is what keeps things together, especially whenever things start falling apart. And this artificial culture that has been curated has been the thing that basically makes people accept lies and then live in those lies, and then think that they can perpetrate living a lie and that's going to get them somewhere positive. And it's just, it won't, and it never will. I think it's crazy that robots and AI still are like the talk of what is scary when it comes to things changing. But like those two things aren't ever what's going to be scary. Like when there becomes a different type of human because of Neuralink or brain interface infusions, which I don't even think eventually we'll need anything but an electromagnetic inducer into your own auric field, and that's what's going to give them the ability to do certain things. And it's no different than trying to put in the electrodes for the brain interface that they already have with what they're doing. But I think the concern that most people aren't talking about is like what happens when that is publicly in the military or in a military regime. And how much of the world right now is actually ran by AI already? How long has it been like that? How much of a story do they depict versus what actually is or has happened as far as where AI and robots are even going? I mean, I've said it for quite a long time that I don't see any reason why we don't already have certain types of technology. And then, you know, we come to find out we obviously do. I think the coolest part that'll come from the AI and robot evolution, instead of like, I say evolution because that's part of what we're coming into, and people being cyborgs, is there will be a time where we actually get to connect again as humans. Because a lot of this individualism and, you know, not being very community oriented, but building your community, quote unquote, in a very parasocial way, because that's what most of the communities that people have are just, and obviously that's the whole point. It is the internet. But, you know, back in the day, people had local communities, and that's what helped people live and function. And you had a different type of sociality, which actually built certain biological bridges between us as humans overall. And with those bridges gone because of the internet, like it's gonna eventually drive us back to the other side of it. Eventually being on here is gonna be a little too much. It's gonna get old. I think in different ways it's already gotten old, and we've kind of seen it move along with that. But I'm excited for the future because there's clearly a point where we have a convergence between all the negative that we've lived in as a species, and you could say all the trauma we've experienced as a whole species for quite some time, which I think that that's only an angle of the actual whole story. Because, yeah, there's a lot of pain, but there's also a lot of good. And pinpointing all of that would be hard when it comes to only having a history that's based off of who won rather than also what happened entirely. So interesting. Something I wish someone had taught me when I was a kid is how important discipline actually is and what it is. Because I think a lot of today's world has really pros that like we have to be kind of rebellious and not follow the systems that are out in the world so that we can do greater things, because we're coming into a world that has been all evolving since anyone under the age of 30 was in their teens. Like, just the last 20 to 30 years have been a crazy shift in human existence. Damn, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, well. I'm high as fuck still. Where is the... Oh, so when I was a kid, I wish someone had instilled discipline more heavily into me, because like that is still the principle that will make anything start to actually matter. Because what we already do is we create disciplines for how we live our life on a day-to-day basis. Because what you show up doing every day is what you're disciplined to do. Like, not every person is wired like you at all. Every person is wired drastically different. And that's just what they're accustomed to, they're used to, they're comfortable with, whatever. But, you know, building a new discipline structure for something you want to put in yourself is not like, oh man, I got to do this. It's like, I start looking at things as a test. It's like, how consistent can I be? How much can I show up for this to make sure, like, I don't know why exercising seems so fundamental when it comes to like other parts of like whatever it is you want to do. But, you know, when you're an entrepreneur in any type of way, or you're on your own, you don't really have much of a choice but to have a good amount of discipline. You know, your results are kind of still up to you. So I think exercising and trying to keep up with all of that has really taught me the fundamental principle of just like, you're not supposed to see growth in one day. You're supposed to see it build up over time, that you showed up, you stayed consistent, and you're going to feel it. You're going to see it. It's going to be undeniable that it's there. And as you move through places in life, you know, just because you stop exercising for a day or two or a week or whatever, that doesn't mean like, oh man, now you're chopped, you're cooked. You know, you maintain your physique once you have built it. And I think that it's hard to wrap people's heads around with how things function today, and I'm still in the same boat, being where I'm at, saying this now, knowing that I'm going to find some type of success somewhere along the way. I'm not really sure where. If you start looking at things as if you only can succeed, then you're bound to succeed, even if you fail 100 times. I think the polarity behind putting effort into something is merely an illusion. And over time, eventually that illusion has to fade. Everything that you did still compound interest into something, then like you're really just learning, and learning is what creates the format for mastery. And mastery is what lets you actually maintain whatever it is that you sought. I think it's just the negativity plugged in the world by like, unless you just kind of got the grit to get in there and just do it, whether you're going to actually do it right or just do it your own way. Like, I think that that's kind of the point, is there's not really a right or wrong. You know, there's templates. You can follow people's templates. You can follow people's way of anything, but that might not fully work for you, and you might have to learn your own way. I've had to learn that very heavily, that I have to sometimes learn in my own way, on my own time, on my own discretions, and through really unique avenues that I didn't think I'd ever have to learn from. There's just no getting around it. And part of that was also me just like going all in and not even thinking about it, or just figuring out how I'm going to do it and just not trying to go back and forth with it.